Good morning, everybody, and I'm sorry that you're having to have PD through a video because I like to have the interaction and everything. But the good news is you'll just have 15 minutes because that's all Screencast-O-Matic will do. So I'd rather be there with you in person, but I tested positive for COVID on Thursday. So depending on EVSC quarantine guidelines, if they change, I may be back on Wednesday. If not, I'll be back on Monday the 10th. But in the meantime, I want to go over a few different things here in the 15 minutes that we have. First of all, on the agenda, there are two things. Are you ready for tomorrow? And then the second thing is going to be our professional learning with just a little bit of information about project-based learning. And so it'll look different this morning. And so if you can, while the video is going, or if you need somebody to pause it, please have a copy of the project or problem or unit or content, whatever you plan to launch tomorrow or next week. Please have that available. I hope you had a great winter break. I know at least one person who went to the beach. Hope you had a chance to get together with family and read and relax and watch some football. And I hope that it was a restful winter break. And so now that we are back, the question is, are you ready for tomorrow? So just trying to help us prepare for tomorrow. Tomorrow is an odd day, and then Wednesday will be an even day. So tomorrow, students will pick up their schedule in the Commons and go to first period. We'll need some help in the Commons passing out schedules. If you have the opportunity to come out there and just help pass out schedules, that would be great. And then first period, please show the Welcome Back January 2022 Google slide or video, depending on what we decide to do with that. And then the schedule is going to be, as always on an odd day, 1, 3, 5, 7. We're gaining 8 students, and we're also losing some students as well. So there will be a Google Doc that should be in your email that will have entries and withdrawals. Any schedule changes, if they're major schedule changes, like I don't have a 7th period, those go up the priority chain pretty quickly. But if it's just, a minor schedule change, there will be a form in the news feed that students can fill out. Class lists are up to date in RDS. That should say RDS, not Echo. That's my fault. So class lists are up to date in RDS. And then just one housekeeping measure for last semester. Please submit all grades before Wednesday, January 5th by 3:30 p.m. And it's a fresh start. Except for health, all classes are new. So that's a good thing for students. That's a good thing for you. As you start with classes both on odd and even days, tomorrow and Wednesday, please just make sure to review your classroom expectations. And then this Welcome Back slide deck has some community building activities for each period, Tuesday and Wednesday. Feel free to use them. And we'll show you the Welcome Back slideshow for students, and please give me feedback. So to the professional learning. We always want to make sure that things are grounded in the SIP. So anything we do as far as professional learning should tie back to the school improvement plan. And so, of course, as you remember, our two major buckets are SAT prep and sense of belonging. And just as a reminder, all teachers will align questions and tasks to SAT-like questions. And so we've been working on that, and the SAT is March 2nd, so we're down to a little under 2 months before our juniors take the SAT, and so we're continuing to work on that. And obviously we want all of our students to belong, so New Tech teachers and staff will cultivate a sense of belonging for all students. So these are the things that we've been working on, nothing new here. And in addition to these things, also in the mix, PBL, GAIN, and VTL. It's like an alphabet soup. So of course PBL is project-based learning. GAIN is growth, academics, innovation, and neuroscience, kind of the backbone of what we're doing with social emotional learning and instruction in the EVSC. And then VTL is the vision for teaching and learning. And so we want to keep sight even as we take a look at our work as far as PBL goes. I want to remind you that our vision for teaching and learning indicator that we've been working on with Learning Walks first semester and will continue second semester is maximizing practice. So with all of those things in mind, where is PBL? And that's something that, as we've gone along, of course, we're a project-based learning school. We're a New Tech school. We are a spotlight school in the New Tech network. So we have that recognition, but I think we also have the responsibility that we need to uphold the standards of project-based learning. So we're dedicated to our 2 SIP strategies, and we have to continue to meet our SIP goals faithfully. And we need to keep PBL strong at NewTek. So I didn't use but I used and. So it's really trying to keep both of those things juggling at the same time. But how do we do that? Well, here's just kind of a reminder. This is a great graphic. It's now 7 years old that the NewTek Network put out. But it is traditional units and traditional teaching versus project-based learning. So in a traditional unit with a project at the end, often called project as dessert, you have all of those things and then the projects at the end. Whereas project-based learning is embedded throughout the entire instruction so that it is, it has benchmarks, it has times for reflection, and it's a fluid process as well. And so back in 2018, it's now been 4 years ago, that our PBL leadership team, along with the NewTek Network coach at the time, developed 12 essential elements of PBL at NewTek. So I want to take just a second for you to look at those 12 essential elements in this graphic. It's a graphic that Ryan put together. And so entry event, driving question, rubrics. Second column, benchmarks, IACTs. Tasks aligned to target, culminating product and reflections. Third column, resources and collaboration management. And fourth column, agendas and echo. And considering that our 12 essential elements are 4 years old, we may need to revise them. But for now, I know that you're launching content tomorrow. So rather than waiting like, well, let's wait and see what we should do with the 12 essential elements, let's look at what you're planning to launch tomorrow to see how that relates to the 12 essential elements. And so back in December, I gave a survey to everybody to ask you to respond to your level of comfort with the 12 essential elements. And so 8 of you responded, and thankfully, as you can tell, your level of proficiency and your level of comfort fall in the very comfortable column in most areas. There are just a few areas that are, in the not at all or somewhat, and then mostly captures a lot of it as well. But again, this was not a judgment, or this was not at all an evaluation of your PBL experience. Honestly, PBL has kind of taken a back seat the last couple of years. So if you've joined NewTek in the last couple of years, we haven't really talked about IACTs much, and we haven't really talked about a lot of these PBL-specific things that we do. And so that's really what we want to do, is just take a look at how can we get everybody up to being proficient. And I know that at any given time, you're not always going to have all 12 essential elements of PBL, because I know in some cases, well, this content doesn't lend itself to PBL, or, this content doesn't necessarily lend itself to a problem even. But by and large, we want to make sure that our content, whether it's in the form of a project or a problem, or whether it's framed in a unit, that it is meeting these essential elements of PBL. Maybe not all at one time, maybe not all 12 within a unit or a project, but we want to make sure that we're aware of them and that we are working toward them. And so, thinking chronologically through a project, tomorrow or this week is when you plan to launch. And so, looking at that, do you have an entry event? Do you have a driving question? And have you developed rubrics for the work? And again, I don't want you to panic and think, oh, I'm behind now. I thought I was ahead, but now I'm behind. No, that's the value of having a less than 15-minute PD session where you have to listen to me talk, because actually you're going to have some time today to be able to look at these things individually and then collaboratively. So at first, I'd like for you to look at your plans for what you have scheduled to launch this week. And do you have an entry event? Do you have a driving question? And do you have a rubric? So I'd like for you to take however long it takes. I'm not a fan of saying, take 5 minutes or take 10 minutes, because, your time is valuable. So you can do this very quickly. Just take a look at what you have planned to launch tomorrow or this week, and just to see, do you have an entry event? Do you have a driving question? And do you have a rubric? If the answer is yes to one or all of those, that's great. If the answer is no, again, it's not an evaluation or an indictment on what you have planned. It's just a professional nudge to say, let's take a look at maybe how you could have an entry event and how something very, that even seems like it wouldn't have an entry event, could become more relevant to students and could make a greater connection with students if it had an entry event. And then what I'd like for you to do is to pair up with a partner of your choice and discuss those three elements, the entry event, the driving question, and the rubric, to see what needs to happen for those to happen. And again, the entry event and the driving question specifically are things that should happen early in your project. And so, and again, you might say, but I'm not planning a project right now. I'm not doing a project to start second semester. I would still say, do you have some event, whether it's a letter, whether it's a video, or some kind of hook to help students kind of get an idea of what the content is going to be. I know a lot of times an entry event takes the form of a letter written to students, and that is great. That certainly works as an entry event. But you could also have a video, or it could be, that you're going to start a contest, or, just what is it that you want to accomplish in this time that you have set aside for this content, which again, I think also gets at a driving question that, what is the ultimate, what's the takeaway message that you want your students to have at the end of the time that you share this content, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's 3 weeks. If it's a problem, it could be, 1 or 2 class periods, but, at the end of the first chunk, for lack of a better word, of content that you're going to share, what is the take-home message? What is that essential learning that you want students to have as they come away from that? And really, that can be your driving question then. Of course, ideally, it's going to be rooted in your standards and your learning targets, but it is sort of a culmination of the entire unit itself. So I've done a whole lot of talking, and so I'm going to direct you to one last slide here. And this slide has some resources, and honestly, I don't know why I didn't think of this earlier. You may see some orange binders in your room that you either remember getting from me or you inherited from the teacher before you that has some outdated resources in it. And I guess I've always been geared to print things off and put them in binders and give them out, but we can do this electronically so that it can be a more fluid and more up-to-date way of sharing these things. And so what I've done is I've built a Google page. It's actually a Google sheet, not a web page, but it's just a Google sheet that I have shared with you. And it's just titled 12 Essential Elements of PPL for New Tech. So it has the graphic, it has the difference between doing projects versus project-based learning. And then if you're thinking like, well, I have no idea what a driving question looks like, it's going to have a link of here's what a driving question can look like. Sometimes they can also be called problem statements as well. Also, there is information there about rubrics and entry events as well. So hopefully that resource will help you. And so in the time that you have today, again, there's no set time because I know you need to get ready for second semester to launch tomorrow. So I just would like for you to look at this and just shoot me a quick email once you finish of where you are in regard to this. After you look at what you plan to launch tomorrow, and then you collaborate with a peer or colleague to see where you are with that. Just shoot me a quick email and let me know where you are with that. Again, it's not evaluative. I just want to know where you are with, do you have a driving question, an entry event, and rubrics ready for the content that you're going to start beginning tomorrow. So again, I'm sorry that I can't be there with you in person. I hope to see you maybe Wednesday, but if not Wednesday, then it'll be the following Monday. But if you have any questions, I am trapped in isolation right now. So call me, email me, text me if you have any questions. I will be glad to communicate and be able to share any insight that I have. I hope you have a great start to second semester, and I will be with you as soon as I can. Thank you very much.